So I want to do more like advanced handstand drills. And by advanced, I mean they're advanced to some extent to like CrossFitters or gym goers, and especially for like advanced for normal people, not really advanced for gymnasts or anything like that. We start doing these once we start kind of looking something like this in the handstand. So once we kind of do, you know, this where it's like almost there, or we kick over a little bit, where we're almost like on the verge of holding it and not quite there. That's the time for it. If we're still generally kind of struggling with a lot of the easier stuff, then I wouldn't do these quite yet. We don't want to rush into this because we're going to start, it's a technical movement. It's not that challenging, but it is technical enough to command respect. And we just don't want to learn a bunch of bad techniques and kind of shoot ourselves in the feet and slow the progress down rather than speed it up. But once you're almost there, once you start kicking up and it's starting to look pretty decent, this is kind of the next level. And the first step we'll do is forward roll. We always do it with folks, even if I know they're pretty good at the handstand and so forth, just to make sure that for some reason people are afraid of it sometimes, and you just never know until you ask. So forward roll, tuck your head in, and just roll. Even if it's not pretty, it doesn't really matter. We just want to do a forward roll just to kind of get it out of the way, get the cobwebs out of the way. I don't know if anybody ever spotted me when I was learning this, or if I got it on my own. I think somebody spotted me, but I'm not gonna lie. And so we can put our hands here, but at first it's probably better on the mat. And the way I like to do it is we're gonna do 1 or 2 kick-ups. We're gonna do 1 kick-up, and just we can come up and leave our hands up, but we're not gonna go over. We're gonna do second one, but we're not gonna go over. And the third one, I'm not gonna worry about it too much. You can keep it kind of down low, and we're just gonna roll. As long as we don't die, it's fine, even if it's not real pretty. And so this way you do 3 kick-ups. First 2 we don't go over, and the third one we do. And the reason I do that is because when we're first doing these a bunch of times and so forth, everybody just starts doing these. And the problem is that there's no real handstand attempt there. It's just more of a high forward roll, kick over type thing. And it just doesn't lead anywhere. So doing 1 kick-up, 2 kick-up, and then the third one. And the third one, if it doesn't even go over, we don't go over. That's perfectly fine. Maybe we'll go on the 4th one on the next set. But that's kind of we start doing it. And so if you need a spot for this, I mean, you'd be better off safe than sorry and have it spotted several times before you try it on your own and end up like headbutting the mat and crashing onto your neck, because that wouldn't be smart or good. But that's a really good drill. And the point is that little by little, we start getting into that better and better handstand, and it starts kind of going, nice and tight. And we just do a proper handstand forward roll from it. Eventually we can start messing around more as we get better with a straight arm forward roll, where we, instead of coming down like into a handstand push-up and rolling, we just kind of go on a straight arm and reach through it further, so it goes. And it's just some more control, it's a little bit harder. Not really practical in any way, but it's just something to practice. So that's kind of the next iteration. And at that point, once you can pretty much almost hold it, that's where it really starts becoming fun, and you pretty much have it. And we start working towards our turn. So let's go over the turning technique real quick. When we start working towards our turn, by this point now, you start being able to hold it. Maybe 5-10 seconds at a time, maybe working up. One thing to be mindful of is once you start progressing, so imagine if this is your handstand and you're here, right? And I spend maybe a second or 2 pressure on my wrist. You go from there and you're actually holding it, you exponentially go and increase how much time is under tension on our wrist. So it does help to have either tape and just tape it off lightly, or have like wrist wraps. I use like the boxing wraps that we cut to length and just kind of wrap it. And it just helps to support that wrist while you're progressing through those like beginner stages of proper handstand. Eventually you won't need it anymore, but at first, just a heads up, you might get it same way when you first start training like the strict muscle up. You might start having a little bit of that elbow pain from the transition. Not super common, but if it happens, just something to watch out for, that drop your volume a little bit, that you're trying to do too much, or just tape it off. So when we're gonna start doing the handstand turns, what we want to do is, when you kick up, first make sure there's nothing around you. And I'm speaking from experience because when I first got it, I got real excited. And I did my first, I think, like 720 turn. The most I've done before was like a 360 or like a turn and a half. And I got real excited. I had a bucket like a few feet away, and I spun out and ended up like crashing my butt into the bucket. Had like a line cutting across it and so forth, so it was not real pretty. But be mindful of surroundings, because you're going to start traveling around a little bit. At first, you're not going to stay in the tight circle. But once you kick up, and you can hold it, just start turning a little bit. You'll start noticing your feet come apart. You'll start noticing yourself all over the place. But that's the place to go. Once you can do your first 360, at that point, you'll be able to handstand walk 50, 100 feet without too much problem, just by osmosis. It might be somewhat slow at first, but it'll be there for you. One thing I like to do around this point too, once we start getting a little bit better at the handstand, is start trying to do them either on parallettes or dumbbells. The parallettes are great. They're a little taller. If you got really low ones, they'll work really well, because these can get people sketched out pretty well. But the dumbbells, the hex one, work really well for this. And so we can start doing our same like two-leg or straddle, or the single leg kick-ups on a set of dumbbells. And just practicing on those, because as soon as you try that, it's going to throw you at first your whole handstand game kind of out of it, and you'll be like, whoa. But then little by little you'll realize it's all the same, and it'll give you more awareness. And you actually might find that doing it on dumbbells or parallettes will be almost easier than straight up on the floor, because folks have a lot more control at first this way rather than on the wrist, because we had a limit of our extension here, and it's weirder to control it through the middle of the hand versus something like this. We got quite a bit more strength in it, and so it's not any worse. Just the parallettes, because they're higher, the kick up is higher and it's a little sketchier. And you can progress to these. Sooner or later, it doesn't really matter. Try it out. Just kick a little bit. If you have to bail, the bail is somewhat the same, just to make sure there's no random stuff laying around. And let's see if I can just straddle. Yeah, so it's pretty much the same thing. It's not really like dramatically that big of a deal. You can also even try, if you are afraid of two dumbbells, try it on one. So this way, if you normally take one hand off, just do it like this. The fact that one arm is bent will kind of, actually I didn't kick this. The fact that one arm is slightly bent like that'll throw you off your game too, and then you can do it. Same thing other side. And you'll just get to practice the handstand, more variation. That's one of them. It's a pretty good drill. Once you can hold it in place, another really good drill is a little handstand hop. So we go, this one's done from a lunge. And so at this point we can go kind of lunge into it. And on this one it really is, we just get used to locking that shoulder, locking the elbow so nothing's soft. Because if you have a slight bend, it'll be immediately noticeable on that little hop. You don't even have to get too high of a handstand. We can be pretty low, and then eventually we can be higher up, and it's just a more controlled situation. And even doing a handstand from a lunge, if you normally don't do it, try it and just take a small step. We can do the full gymnastics one, but it comes to a point where it just doesn't really matter to do it super, super clean. Or do we just hold a nice solid handstand and not really worry about too many particulars? So, but we can do like a long lunge handstand where it's it's a goofy looking one, but that's more like a proper one. So, as a tidbit of random information, at least from what I've been taught in gymnastics, your handstand should terminate about your full body length away from where you start. So for me, it's like 8 feet away. So if I start my handstand on this line, I should be on that line, and so we go. Nailed it. But again, it's something at this point, it's like when do we hand snatch or when do we just snatch off the floor, when do we pause at the knee, when do we do a 3 position. It doesn't really matter anymore. We're in that kind of play zone where we're good enough to do what we want. I mean, hell, you want to do something weird, instead of doing it on dumbbells, just take your shoes and try to do a handstand in your shoes. No, that's extra. There we go. So, like, play with it. Just be mindful of don't scale the difficulty too much and attempt it. So when I do something like that I've never tried before, and I have tried this before, but just give it like a small try before you commit. So don't overkick, but just kind of get used to what you're trying to do. Or if we're doing it, you know, we try to pull a bench out. Don't just commit to like a whole handstand right away. Just kick up a little bit, give it a try. Be smart. Don't just try to be stupid and then die. So, hey, even like this is actually not super challenging or nothing like that. It's actually harder to do it like this for whatever reason. A couple most useful things here are probably just the forward roll, the handstand forward roll, and the handstand on the dumbbells. Everything else is just kind of more goofing around. I mean, the parallettes are good too, but dumbbells are parallettes, it's roughly the same thing. But once we start getting to this point too, what I like to do is start showing people a little bit more challenging stuff as well to progress even further. Since we're already almost doing a handstand, we're doing much more challenging drills than like a beginner CrossFitter would do or something like that. So what we can do here is start working on our flexibility for real and start working towards a freestanding handstand push-up. And so I get a couple of mats, tee off like this, gonna stretch right here into the back bridge, and just stretch here. If we can go like this, that's even better. We're gonna try both. And then we can actually put our shoulders here, and at first just gonna kick over, just to get used to the motion over, and then we're gonna start working on the actual back walk over, or whatever it's called. But we can start getting the shoulders off here, and little by little, just like kick, kick. And it's not real elegant necessarily at first, but little by little, you just kind of get used to it. And then we can just work our way down, and little by little, just open up, and just do 1 or 2 kick over on each height. Gradually too, as like your confidence grows, we can try this. And we're just gonna collapse here, kick back over. And then eventually we can just do this, where we go, sit up in that, kick up. We can even try like in a headstand. We can just start pressing from here. At first, this one's real tricky, like it's hard to find balance. Like I'm not gonna say this is super easy, this is about like really as far as I have taken it. I mean, I've taken it all the way, but as far as I don't do much more complicated than freestanding handstand push-up. But this takes some time to develop. Like a handstand by itself, freestanding, you know, we're looking at 2-4 months usually for somebody who can do one already against the wall if we diligently practice. This might take a while, just because there's strength at play, balance. I mean, we're starting to move around more. It's still not super difficult, but we start getting into where we're usually probably trained a fair bit, and there's other things we want to do, whether we snatch or muscle up and whatever. And so, well, let's try to do a set of 5 here, see what happens. So now that that's done, then I do another set here, and if that's 5, set there, and about 3 sets of 5, and that's all I would really do. And as you can imagine, once you go all the way down, you can do freestanding handstand push-ups, and so we go down this rabbit hole, and that's where I've been, where I started not being able to do pull-ups or push-ups or anything like that. And here we are. So hopefully that helps. Some fun drills, and just remember, do stupid things in a controlled and safe environment. You know, don't risk your lives for nothing, unless it's worth it.